The Listening House. Chapter 1, The Arrival. The road to Wetherwood House snaked through a desolate wilderness, a ribbon of cracked gravel strangled by thorns and overshadowed by ancient oaks, their gnarled branches clawing at a sky swollen with bruised clouds. Viola Mirth's car rattled, its engine a feeble protest against the wind's mournful wail, each gust carrying the scent of decay, as if the earth itself exhaled death. The estate loomed ahead, a crumbling colossus of grey stone, its spires jagged like shattered bones piercing the twilight, its facade pitted with centuries of neglect. Windows glinted with an unnatural sheen, reflecting neither the fading light nor the barren landscape but something deeper, darker, as if the glass trapped secrets too vast to escape. Viola's hands trembled on the steering wheel, her pulse a frantic rhythm, each beat echoing the dread that had taken root since Dr. Lysander Knox prescribed this isolation to heal her shattered nerves after her collapse. The silence of the countryside was not empty, it was alive, watchful, a predator sizing up its prey. She parked beside rusted iron gates, their spikes twisted into grotesque shapes, as if forged by hands driven mad. Her suitcase scraped the gravel, its weight an anchor as she trudged toward the entrance, her boots sinking into the path, which seemed to shift beneath her, resisting her approach. The air was thick with damp earth and a sharper tang, iron, or blood, a scent that clung to her throat, refusing to fade. The front door, blackened oak carved with sigils that seemed to pulse in the dim light, groaned open before her knuckles could touch it, revealing a figure in the shadowed threshold, an old woman, her face a labyrinth of wrinkles, her eyes milky as clouded ice, glinting with a knowledge that made Viola's skin crawl. "You're the new one," the woman said, her voice a low drone, like a chant from a forgotten ritual, each word heavy with inevitability. "Miss Mirth, ain't it?" Viola clutched her leather-bound journal, its worn cover a tether to her fraying sanity, its pages a sanctuary for thoughts she no longer trusted. "Yes. Viola Mirth. Dr. Knox sent me." The woman stepped forward, her movements deliberate, as if each step tested the ground's patience, her patched dress rustling like dead leaves. "Mrs. Gilead, caretaker. Been here longer than the stones, longer than the shadows they cast." Her lips stayed flat, refusing a smile, her hands knotted like ancient roots clasped before her. "Come in, girl. Don't linger. The house don't like waiting, and it's got no patience for dawdlers." Viola hesitated, her gaze caught by the manor's facade. Ivy clung to the stone like veins, pulsing faintly in the dying light, as if the house breathed through them, its rhythm slow and deliberate. The windows shimmered, their surfaces rippling like disturbed water, each pane a mirror to something Viola felt but couldn't name, a presence that pressed against her soul. She crossed the threshold, the air inside cool and damp, heavy with mildew and that metallic scent that coated her tongue like rust. The foyer was vast, a cavern of warped wood and dust, its chandelier a skeletal mass of crystal and cobwebs, swaying gently though no breeze stirred, its clinking a faint, mocking laughter. Candles flickered in iron sconces, their flames trembling as if afraid, casting shadows that danced across the walls. The wallpaper seized her attention, green gold, faded to a sickly hue, adorned with intricate spirals that seemed to twist when she blinked, curling like tendrils reaching for her mind. "It's grand," Viola said, her voice swallowed by the vastness, a frail attempt at civility that felt absurd against the house's oppressive weight. Mrs. Gilead's snort was dry, sharp as splintered bone. "Grand's one word. Mind the walls, girl. They're particular about being stared at, and they don't take kindly to prying eyes." "What does that mean?" Viola turned, her voice sharper than intended, but Mrs. Gilead was already shuffling down a corridor, her humming, a low, tuneless melody that vibrated in Viola's chest, trailing behind like a specter. Viola followed, her boots echoing on the floorboards, each creak a warning that the house was listening, its gaze a cold hand on her spine. She shook the thought away, blaming her nerves, Dr. Knox's voice echoing in her mind, cold and clinical, "Your imagination is your enemy, Viola. Control it, or it will consume you." Her room waited on the second floor, reached by a staircase that groaned as if in agony, each step sagging, threatening to plunge her into darkness. The door creaked open, revealing a chamber dominated by a four-poster bed, its canopy draped in muslin so dusty it seemed to breathe, swaying faintly in the still air, as if stirred by unseen hands. A single window overlooked gardens choked with thorns, where shadows writhed in shapes that defied the wind, their movements too deliberate, too alive. The wallpaper was identical to the foyer's, spirals curling like vines, catching the candlelight in a way that made them pulse, as if alive, their curves glinting with a malevolent awareness. A writing desk sat in the corner, its surface scarred with claw-like scratches, an inkwell crusted with age, its contents black and viscous, like congealed blood. The air was heavier here, the metallic tang sharper, a blade pressed to her tongue, urging her to taste the house's secrets. "Supper's at 7, Mrs. Gilead said from the doorway, her voice slicing the silence, her milky eyes fixed on Viola with unnerving precision. "Don't wander. The house has ways of keeping folks where it wants them, and it don't tolerate strays." Viola set her suitcase down, forcing a smile that felt like a betrayal of her fear. "I'm here to rest. I'll be fine." Mrs. Gilead's eyes narrowed, glinting like shards of glass, sharp and unyielding. "Rest, is it? Mind you don't sleep facing the walls. They don't like being watched, and they've got a way of watching back." She turned, her humming resuming, a low, eerie thread that wove into the walls, fading as she disappeared down the hall, leaving Viola alone with a silence that pressed against her ears like water, drowning her thoughts. Viola stood frozen, the silence a weight on her chest, her breath shallow and ragged. She opened her journal, her pen scratching across the page, the ink trembling with her hand, each word a desperate anchor to reality. "The walls feel alive. I don't know if they're breathing, or if I'm forgetting how to. The house is watching, and Mrs. Gilead knows more than she says." She paused, her eyes drifting to the wallpaper. The spirals shifted, a subtle twist that vanished when she focused, their curves glinting like eyes caught in the act of staring. Her heart thudded, a cold sweat prickling her skin, her pulse a counterpoint to the house's silent rhythm. Imagination, she told herself, but the word was hollow, a shield too flimsy for Wetherwood's gaze. Sleep was impossible that night, the vast bed a cold tomb, its sheets clinging like damp hands, their chill seeping into her bones. The candles flickered wildly, their flames bending as if fleeing an unseen presence, casting shadows that danced across the spirals, making them writhe like serpents, their curves coiling tighter with each glance. She lay facing the window, the moonlight casting jagged patterns, but her eyes strayed to the wall, drawn by an urge she couldn't name. The spirals moved again, not overtly, but with a slow, deliberate pulse, like a heartbeat echoing through the house's veins. She sat up, her breath catching, and lit another candle, its flame a frail defiance against the darkness that seemed to breathe around her. Then she heard it. A whisper, soft as silk brushing silk, seeping from the wall by her bed, crawling under her skin, rooting in her bones like a parasite. It formed no words at first, just a low, insistent murmur that vibrated in her chest, a call she felt rather than heard. Her pulse hammered, her hands clutching the sheets until her knuckles ached. The sound sharpened, shaping itself into a word that froze her blood. Her name. Viola. She scrambled out of bed, her candle tumbling, its flame snuffed out in a hiss of wax, plunging the room into darkness save for the moonlight's trembling glow, which seemed to dim as if afraid. The whisper came again, clearer, closer, slithering from the wall, its tone soft but possessive, a lover's call laced with hunger. Viola, stay. Her breath hitched, a sob choking her throat, her body trembling as she stumbled to the door, yanking it open, the hinges screaming. The whispers followed, fainter but relentless, a chorus just beyond her hearing, their presence a weight on her soul. She pressed her hands to her ears, her journal clutched under her arm, its edges digging into her skin, and ran down the hallway, the floorboards groaning, each creak a mockery of her fear. The foyer was dimly lit, candles casting shadows that twisted like fingers reaching for her. Mrs. Gilead stood by a candelabrum, her humming unbroken, her silhouette a statue carved from shadow, as if rooted to the spot since Viola last saw her. "Miss Mirth," she said, not looking up, her voice calm as still water, a deceptive tranquility that chilled Viola. "You're up late. Did you hear that?" Viola's voice trembled, her hands shaking, the journal nearly falling. "The walls, they're talking." Mrs. Gilead's humming stopped, the silence heavier, a void pulsing with the house's awareness. She turned, her face a mask in the candlelight, her milky eyes glinting with something, pity, fear, or something older, deeper. "Talking, you say? So soon?" She stepped closer, her dress rustling like leaves, her gaze unnervingly precise. "What did they say, girl?" "My name," Viola whispered, fear tightening her chest like a vice, her breath ragged. "They said my name." Mrs. Gilead's lips pressed into a thin line, her hands clenching, knuckles gleaming white. "Best not listen too close. The walls, they remember things. Old things. Painful things. Here and too long, they'll weave you into their memory, and you won't come back out." Viola's stomach twisted, dread sinking into her bones. "What does that mean? What are they?" Mrs. Gilead didn't answer. She resumed her humming, softer, mournful, a dirge resonating with the walls, as if they sang along. She pointed to the stairs, a silent command. "Back to bed, Miss Mirth. Don't face the walls when you sleep. Don't answer when they call." Viola wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the house's weight pressed against her, urging obedience, a cold hand on her spine. She climbed the stairs, her heart pounding, each step heavier, the floorboards groaning like the damned. The whispers had stopped, but the spirals watched, their curves glinting like eyes, their gaze unyielding. She locked her door, her hands trembling as she wrote, "The walls know my name. They're alive. Mrs. Gilead is part of this, but she won't tell me what they are. I'm not safe." She didn't sleep, her eyes fixed on the spirals, pulsing with a life of their own, waiting for her to falter, to give them what they craved. Chapter 2, The Echo Room. Dawn brought no solace to Wetherwood House, its walls swallowing the frail sunlight that clawed through grimy windows, casting a jaundiced pallor over the foyer's warped floorboards, as if the house rejected the day's offering. Viola hadn't slept, her eyes burning, her body aching from the tension gripping her since the whispers called her name. Her journal lay open, its pages a chaotic scrawl of fear, the ink smudged by trembling hands, each word holding onto a mind fraying at the edges. "The walls are alive. They know me. I'm not imagining this." Fleeing to Dr. Knox's sterile office was a siren's call, but his voice echoed, sharp and dismissive, "You're projecting, Viola. Face your truths, or they'll destroy you." She couldn't return until she understood the house's grip, or broke it. She wandered the manor, her footsteps echoing in cavernous corridors, each sound devoured by oppressive silence. The air was thick with dust and a metallic tang, unmistakable as blood, though no source was visible, as if the house bled beneath its stone skin. The wallpaper was everywhere, green-gold spirals curling across every surface, shifting when her gaze lingered, as if resenting scrutiny, their curves tightening like coils ready to snap. Her journal was a heavy weight, a fragile lifeline to thoughts unraveling in the house's grasp. She avoided the foyer's chandelier, its crystals glinting like teeth, and the staircase's groans, but her wanderings led to a door at the end of a shadowed hallway, its wood warped, scarred as if clawed by desperate hands. The knob was ice-cold, biting her palm, but it turned with a click, as if eager for her entry, the door swinging inward with a sigh. The room beyond was small, its walls smothered in spirals, tighter and more frenetic, coiled like springs, pulsing faintly, as if alive. The air was colder, the silence deeper, broken by a hum, not Mrs. Gilead's, but older, emanating from the walls, crawling up Viola's spine. She stepped inside, her journal open, pen poised, heart pounding. The room felt like a trap, its walls leaning inward, spirals watching her every move. "Hello?" she whispered, the words slipping out, her voice sinking into the walls, absorbed like a stone in a well, leaving no echo. The whispers answered. They came from all sides, a chorus of voices, men, women, children, overlapping in anguish, their words fragmented but heavy with pain. "Forgive me, I didn't mean, it wasn't my fault." Names, Eleanor, Thomas, Clara, wove through pleas, sobs, and screams, clawing at her chest. She spun, her candle flickering, searching for the source, but the room was empty, the voices seeping from the wallpaper like blood. The spirals pulsed with the whispers, their curves tightening, as if feeding on the sound, their glow intensifying. "Who are you?" she asked, louder, her voice trembling, journal clutched tightly. The whispers sharpened, focusing. "Viola," her name slithered from the walls, wrapping around her like a chain, possessive and hungry. "Viola, you're here." She stumbled back, her shoulder grazing the wall, the contact a jolt, burning and cold. The whispers surged, louder, angrier, drowning her thoughts. "Stay, tell us, tell us," the spirals glowed, forming a vortex pulling at her mind, urging her to confess. "Stop it," she shouted, journal crumpling, pen falling. The voices paused, then resumed, softer, sulky, their hunger palpable. She backed toward the door, candle nearly dying, Mrs. Gilead's voice cutting through. "You shouldn't be in here, girl." Viola spun, finding the old woman in the doorway, milky eyes unnervingly precise, hands clasped tightly. "What is this place?" Viola demanded, journal a shield. "What are these voices?" Mrs. Gilead shuffled forward, her dress rustling. "The echo room. Where the walls keep their memories. Old pain echoes loudest, Miss Mirth. Steer clear, lest you add to it. Memories." Viola's laugh was brittle, echoing faintly before the walls devoured it. "They're talking. They know my name." Mrs. Gilead's face hardened, lips thinning. "They know everyone here. The walls listen, girl. Always have. Don't give them something to hold on to." Viola scribbled frantically, "The echo room. The walls are alive. They want something. What do they want? She asked, fear tightening her throat. Mrs. Gilead's humming resumed, mournful, vibrating with the walls. To be remembered. To be heard. Give them too much, they'll take more than you got, your heart, your soul. She turned, voice heavy. Don't speak to the walls. Don't touch the spirals. Don't come back here. Viola fled, slamming the door, the hallway narrower, spirals leaning toward her. She ran to her room, locking the door, breath ragged. She wrote, the echo room is alive. The walls are hungry. They're waiting for me to break. The spirals pulsed, glinting, acknowledging her words. She didn't sleep, candle burning low, shadows twisting, a silent promise of horrors to come. Chapter 3, Familiar Voice. Days at Wetherwood House blurred into a fog of sleepless nights and creeping terror, each moment a thread in a tapestry of dread. Viola's journal was her refuge, its pages a labyrinth of frantic scrawls, each word holding onto a mind fraying at the edges. The walls are alive. They see me. They know my name. The spirals haunted her, tightening with each glance, as if the house were a serpent coiling around her soul. She avoided the echo room, its door a scar, but the whispers followed, faint and insidious, seeping into her thoughts like poison, sometimes sobs, laughter, or screams cut short, each a shard of another's pain, reminding her she was never alone. She confined her explorations to safer parts, the dining hall with its scarred table, the library where books crumbled, the gardens where thorns tore her skin, but the house resisted, corridors stretching, doors heavier, urging her back to the walls. Mrs. Gilead was a ghost, her humming a relentless thread setting Viola's teeth on edge, her warnings, mind the walls, keep your thoughts quiet, daggers, useless against the house's hunger. Viola wanted to confront her, but the house's weight stifled her courage, leaving only fear. On the 8th night, sleep a memory, Viola sat by her window, moonlight casting jagged shadows. The spirals glowed, pulsing like veins, her journal open, pen hovering. The whispers returned, softer, warmer, achingly familiar, from the wall near the door. Viola, darling. Her pen clattered, heart lurching. Her mother's voice, unheard since the accident, since her hand went cold in the hospital. Mama, she whispered, voice cracking. Viola, my sweet girl. Why did you leave me? Viola stumbled to her feet, journal falling, trembling. You're not real, she said, a mantra against the impossible. You're dead. The wallpaper pulsed, spirals tightening, as if drawing the voice inward. I'm here, Viola, waiting for you. She backed away, hitting the bedpost, pain grounding her. Stop it, she said, tears burning. You're not her. The voice wove memories, the oak tree, her fall, her mother's hands bandaging her knees, the lullaby sung in the dark, the argument, Viola's, I hate you, her mother's face crumpling before driving into the rain. You said you hated me, the voice whispered, accusing. You left me alone. Tears streamed, guilt crushing her. I didn't mean it, she sobbed, clawing her hair. I was angry. The spirals shimmered, glinting cruelly. Tell me, Viola, tell me you're sorry. She sank to her knees, sobbing. I'm sorry, Mama. The whispers softened, hungry. Good girl, we hear you, we keep you. Viola froze. We. Not her mother. Rage ignited, and she lunged, nails tearing the wallpaper, revealing soft, fleshy plaster embedded with fingernails, dozens, some bloody, as if freshly torn. She stumbled back, whispers surging, chanting, "Viola, ours." The spirals glowed, forming a vortex pulling at her soul. She ran, hallway a blur of spirals, finding Mrs. Gilead in the foyer, humming unbroken. "They're pretending to be my mother," Viola shouted, hands bloody. Mrs. Gilead's humming stopped, eyes glinting. "Told you to mind the walls, girl. They take what you give them." "What are they?" Viola demanded, nails biting her palms. "There are fingernails in the walls." Mrs. Gilead's hands tightened. "The house settles. You're seeing things." "Seeing things?" Viola's voice rose, hysterical. "I tore the paper. I saw them." Mrs. Gilead stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "You tore the paper. They don't like being touched." Viola's rage faltered, dread creeping in. "Who are they?" Mrs. Gilead turned, humming resuming, mournful. "Back to bed. Don't touch the walls again." Viola climbed the stairs, whispers chanting, "Ours." She locked her door, writing. The walls stole Mama's voice. "Fingernails under the paper. The house wants me." She didn't sleep, eyes on the torn wallpaper, bleeding a dark stain, spreading like a wound. Chapter 4, The Rules. Viola's world shrank to her room, a cell in Wetherwood's prison, its walls a living cage pulsing with malice. The torn wallpaper, patched with a tattered sheet, was a reminder of the house's hunger, its stain spreading, a bruise beating with her heart. She hadn't left since the echo room, the fingernails, her mother's voice twisted into something monstrous. Her journal was her anchor, pages chaotic, handwriting jagged. The walls are alive. They know Mama. They know everything. Mrs. Gilead's humming gnawed at her nerves, a reminder she wasn't alone, but not safe. The spirals watched, tightening when she looked away, the sheet no solace, she felt them beneath, hungry. Whispers quieted, their absence a predator's pause. She hadn't slept, eyes shadowed, thoughts tangled. The metallic tang was stronger, a reminder of blood she couldn't unsee. On the 10th day, Mrs. Gilead appeared, tray of stale bread and grey soup in hand. "You ain't eaten proper," she said, setting it down, movements wary. "Starving won't keep the house at bay." Viola didn't look up, pen scratching. "I'm not hungry." Mrs. Gilead's eyes narrowed. "You'll need strength, Miss Mirth. The house likes em weak." Viola's pen paused. "What is this place? What do the walls want?" Mrs. Gilead sighed, sitting on the bed, hands clasped tightly. "Wetherwood's old, older than the stones, older than the blood it's drunk. It's got a memory, a hunger. The walls listen, keep what they hear." Viola's throat tightened. "Keep what?" "Secrets. Pain. Guilt. You speak M, the walls take M, take you with M." Viola's mind flashed to her mother's voice, the fingernails. "And the people?" Mrs. Gilead's eyes flickered, a shadow crossing her face. "Some leave, if the house allows. Some don't. The walls decide." She stood, pointing to the tray. "Eat. Mind the rules." "Rules?" Viola's voice sharpened. Mrs. Gilead's face was unreadable, eyes glinting. 3 rules. 1. Never confess your secrets aloud. 2. Never touch the spirals. 3. Never sleep on the east side. Break M, the walls claim you. Viola laughed, brittle, echoing before the walls devoured it. It's just wallpaper. Just a house. The wallpaper laughed back. A chuckle rippled through the spirals, growing into a mocking mimicry of Viola's voice. Just wallpaper, just a house, just Viola. It slithered across the walls, the room pulsing, spirals glowing, writhing. Viola froze, journal slipping. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, eyes wide. Mrs. Gilead's hands trembled. "You touched the spirals, didn't you? You've given Em a taste." "I didn't mean to." Viola's voice rose, nails digging into the bed. "I tore the paper, but—" "You gave Em your pain," Mrs. Gilead interrupted, eyes boring into hers. "They know you now. They'll want more." Viola's heart pounded, room spinning. "How do I stop them?" Mrs. Gilead's lips thinned. "You don't. Mind the rules, pray they tire of you." "But they don't." She turned, humming, pausing at the door. "Move your bed from the east wall tonight." Viola dragged her bed to the center, muscles screaming, sweat mixing with tears. The sheet slipped, revealing the stain, spreading like ink, forming spirals. She wrote, the walls laughed. "They know my secrets. Mrs. Gilead's rules are a trap. The house is waiting." The spirals were still, their gaze heavy, a predator's patience. She didn't sleep, candle guttering, shadows twisting, promising her undoing. Chapter 5, A Confession. Viola's existence was a prison of spirals and whispers, Wetherwood's walls a cage tightening with each sleepless night, its grip a predator savoring her fear. Her journal was a confessional, pages chaotic, words holding a fraying mind. "They know my mother. They're inside me." The torn wallpaper, patched with a sheet, pulsed, the stain spreading like a bruise, beating with her heart, creeping toward the ceiling. She hadn't left her room, terrified of corridors where spirals writhed, coiling like nooses around her thoughts. Hunger clawed, but Mrs. Gilead's offerings, stale bread, ashy soup, were repulsive, the metallic tang a constant reminder of blood. The rules, don't confess, don't touch spirals, don't sleep east, were chains, but whispers urged her to break them, a chorus from within. Viola's eyes burned, hands trembling as she wrote, "I can't stay. I can't leave. The house owns me." Desperate for escape, she recalled the cellar, a storeroom beneath the kitchen, perhaps holding something to dull the whispers. At dusk, Mrs. Gilead's humming faded, and Viola crept downstairs, candle trembling, shadows dancing across spirals, glinting like eyes. The kitchen was a tomb of cracked tiles, air thick with mold. A narrow door behind a cupboard led to the cellar, hinges groaning as she forced it open. Stairs descended into darkness, creaking, air colder, thicker, as if the house exhaled malice. The cellar was vast, shelves of rotting crates and cobwebbed bottles, spirals faint but pulsing. Viola's heart pounded, fingers brushing glass, finding a bottle of ancient red wine, its cork brittle, liquid glinting like blood. She needed oblivion. Back in her room, she locked the door, uncorked the bottle, its bitter scent of sour earth and decay filling the air. She drank, the wine burning, tasting of blood and ash, dulling her fear. The room softened, spirals swaying, whispers quieting, or she was too drunk to hear. She sank onto the bed, bottle cradled, journal blurring, spirals fluid, pulling her under. "You're not real," she slurred, defiant. "Just walls." The silence was alive, a predator's pause. Viola drank, wine spilling, staining her blouse like blood. Her thoughts drifted to her mother, the accident, guilt buried deep. The wine loosened her tongue, breaking the first rule. "It was my fault," she whispered, tears mixing with wine. "I told her I hated her. I left her alone, and she drove off. I killed her." The air plummeted, candle guttering, spirals pulsing, inhaling her confession. Whispers returned, echoing her voice, cruel and gleeful, "Your fault. Viola's fault, killed her." Viola froze, bottle shattering, wine pooling, seeping toward the wall, forming spirals. "No," she whispered, scrambling up, vision swimming. The whispers laughed, "Tell us more." Viola's guilt, delicious, the stain spread, dripping, forming a vortex glowing sickly. She lunged, nails tearing the paper, revealing fleshy plaster with hundreds of fingernails, some bloody. Her fingers bled, the wallpaper drinking, spirals pulsing, blinding. "Stop it," she screamed, voice echoing faintly, devoured. "Leave me alone." The whispers chanted, "Ours. Viola's ours." The room spun, spirals closing in, pulling at her soul. She collapsed, sobs absorbed, leaving no trace. Mrs. Gilead found her at dawn, curled on the floor, hands bloody, wallpaper fluttering. "Foolish girl," she muttered, eyes glinting. "I told you not to confess." Viola looked up, voice broken. "They know everything." Mrs. Gilead's lips thinned. "They always did. You fed your soul. They'll want the rest." She turned, humming, leaving Viola with whispers inside her head, promising destruction. The days blurred, Viola a prisoner of her room, the stain now covering half the walls, dripping like blood, forming spirals that seemed to breathe. Her journal was a battlefield, pages scrawled with "I'm sorry, Mama," the ink smudged with tears and blood. The whispers were relentless, her mother's voice joined by others, Eleanor, Thomas, Clara, each accusing, demanding more, their pain blending with hers until she couldn't tell where she ended and they began. She tried to resist, to silence her thoughts, but the spirals watched, their curves tightening, glinting like eyes, urging her to speak, to give them more. She ventured out once, driven by desperation, seeking answers in the library. The shelves sagged, books crumbling, their pages blank or scrawled with spirals, as if the house had erased their words. A locked drawer in a desk yielded to her knife, revealing a single letter, yellowed and brittle, its ink faded but legible. "The walls take what you give. Do not speak. Do not touch. They hunger for your soul." The signature was unreadable, but the paper pulsed faintly, as if alive, its edges curling like the spirals. Viola clutched it, her heart pounding, the whispers surging, "You found it. You know, give us more." She ran back to her room, the letter crumbling to ash, her hands stained, the spirals laughing. "No secrets, no escape," she wrote, "the house knows everything. The letter warned me, but it's too late. I've confessed. They're inside me." The stain spread, dripping from the ceiling, forming a vortex that pulsed with the house's heartbeat, its glow blinding, its hunger a void that threatened to swallow her whole. She didn't sleep, her candle guttering, the spirals watching, their eyes glinting, promising her undoing, her soul a fading echo in their grasp. Chapter 6, The Painted Over. Viola's mind was a battlefield, the house's whispers a siege blurring reality, unraveling her soul. Her journal was chaos, scrawls not always hers, "I'm not crazy" repeated, smudged with blood and tears. The torn wallpaper, Patched by Mrs. Gilead, mocked her, spirals pulsing, the stain covering half the room, dripping like blood, forming spirals writhing in candlelight. They're stealing me. I'm becoming something else. She avoided the echo room, cellar, corridors, but the house drew her deeper, doors appearing, hallways stretching, walls closing in, spirals watching. The air was thick with blood's tang, coating her tongue, a reminder the house lived, its hunger pressing her soul. Mrs. Gilead's rules were lies, a trap to keep her docile while the walls consumed her. Desperate to fight, Viola ventured into the west wing, corridors darker, wallpaper jaundiced, spirals intricate, shifting like a kaleidoscope. The air was decay, blood's tang stronger, seeping from walls. A splintered door, knob rusted, called her, opening to a crypt of dust, walls layered with peeling wallpaper, revealing distorted patterns, spirals frenetic, faces pressed into plaster, mouths open in agony, eyes wide with terror. "Who are you?" she whispered, voice devoured, journal trembling. Whispers answered, hundreds overlapping, raw with pain. "We're here, trapped, names, Eleanor, Thomas, Clara, please," sobs, screams clawing her heart. The faces moved, mouths widening, eyes locking hers, pulling her into despair. Viola's journal shook, faces in the walls. Screaming. "Alive. Want me." She brushed a face, plaster worn, pulsing. Whispers surged, "We're the house, you'll be the house, don't touch." Mrs. Gilead barked, eyes wide, hands clutching the doorframe, humming absent, face ashen. Viola spun, candle falling, darkness falling, faces eyes glinting. "What is this place?" she demanded, journal a shield. Mrs. Gilead shuffled forward, voice reverent. "The painted over. The house's oldest memories, its meals. You're feeding it, girl." "Feeding it what?" Viola's voice rose, nails digging into leather. "You. Your pain. Your soul. These gave too much. They're the house now, there screams its voice. The whispers chanted, part of us, forever, how do I stop it?" Viola whispered, trembling. "You don't. Mind the rules, hope it's enough. But you've confessed, touched the spirals. It won't let go." The faces moved, eyes burning, whispers inside her, blending with her thoughts, questioning her identity. She fled, corridors twisting, spirals guiding her back, locking her door, writing, faces alive. Trapped. Want me to join them? House winning. The stain covered the ceiling, dripping, forming eyes blinking, watching, her thoughts fragmenting, whispers chanting, ours, forever. Her reflection was a stranger, spirals in its eyes, house's hunger swallowing her soul. Viola's days became a descent, the painted over haunting her dreams, the faces' eyes burning into her, their mouths chanting her name. She tried to avoid the west wing, but the house resisted, corridors looping, doors appearing, urging her back. The spirals were everywhere, their eyes multiplying, glinting in candlelight, watching her every move. Her journal was a prison, its pages scrawled with others' pain, Eleanor's lover, Thomas's crime, Clara's despair, her own entries fading, erased by the house's hunger. She wrote, I'm losing myself. The faces know me. They're me. She confronted Mrs. Gilead in the foyer, her voice raw, hands trembling. You knew about the painted over. You knew they're trapped. Mrs. Gilead's humming stopped, her eyes glinting, face unreadable. I told you to mind the rules, girl. You didn't listen. Viola's rage surged, her nails digging into her palms. You're part of this. You're feeding them to the house. Mrs. Gilead's lips thinned, her hands clenching. The house feeds itself. I just tend to it. She turned, humming, resuming, leaving Viola with whispers chanting, ours, always. Viola returned to the painted oval, driven by defiance, her candle trembling, the faces clearer, their mouths moving, chanting, join us, tell us. She touched the plaster, warm and pulsing, the whispers surging, pulling at her soul. She saw Eleanor's betrayal, Thomas's murder, Clara's child sinking, her mother's car spinning, each a wound bleeding into her, their pain hers. She screamed, her voice echoing, cracking the plaster, the faces flinching, their eyes blinking, not in hunger but fear. She wrote, I hurt them. They're afraid. But they're still hungry. The spirals pulsed, the stain dripping, her reflection smiling cruelly, her soul a fading echo, the house's hunger closing in, promising her assimilation. Chapter 7, The Doctor Visits. Dr. Lysander Knox's arrival shattered Wetherwood's silence, tires crunching gravel like bones, a sound that jolted Viola from her vigil by the window, where she watched the world beyond twist under the house's gaze. Her journal was a scream, pages scrawled with terror, they know me. They're stealing me. Knox's skepticism had sent her here, and now, summoned by Mrs. Gilead's letter about her deterioration, he found her bloodied, disheveled, spirals pulsing, stain dripping, her eyes wild with fear and defiance. She stood in her room, the torn wallpaper revealing fleshy plaster with bloody fingernails, a grotesque proof of the house's hunger. See, she said, voice raw, hands trembling, pointing to the wall. The walls are alive. Knox adjusted his spectacles, his face a mask of clinical detachment, his fingers brushing the plaster, coming away clean, his brow furrowing. Viola, this is plaster. No fingernails. You're projecting your guilt. His voice was calm, infuriating, a blade cutting through her truth. Tears burned her eyes, her hands clawing her hair. They're there. They know my mother's voice. They know what I did. Knox sighed, his pity sharper than his skepticism, a wound that bled deeper. Your mother's death was an accident. You're inventing horrors to avoid facing your grief. No, she screamed, her voice raw, echoing faintly before the walls devoured it, the spirals glinting, as if savoring her pain. They laugh. They know my secrets. Knox's eyes narrowed, his hand resting on his satchel, as if ready to produce a sedative, his voice steady, cold. You're not well, Viola. I'm considering a facility, somewhere you can be, contained. Her stomach twisted, dread drowning her rage. You'd lock me away, she whispered, her voice breaking, her hands trembling, the journal a shield. I think you're grieving, Mrs. said, his eyes glinting with pity or disdain, she couldn't tell. Show me your journal. Let me see what you've written. Viola clutched it tighter, her knuckles whitening, the leather creaking under her grip. No. You'll twist it. You'll say I'm mad. Knox shook his head, a patronizing gesture that made her want to scream again, her nails digging into her palms. I need to assess your state, Viola. If you're unwilling to cooperate, he trailed off, his implication heavy, a threat cloaked in concern, his eyes flicking to the door, as if measuring his escape route. She grabbed his arm, her grip bruising, nails digging into his sleeve, her voice desperate, a desperate plea. Tear them down. Tear the walls down. You'll see. Asterisk he saw them. He pulled free, his eyes hardening, a flicker of anger breaking through his calm facade. Enough, Viola. Control yourself, or I'll have no choice. He turned, his shoes clicking on the floorboards, a rhythm that echoed like the house's pulse, his footsteps fading as he descended the stairs, leaving her alone with the house. She stood frozen, trembling, her breath ragged, the journal slipping from her grasp, pages fluttering open to reveal scrawls not her own, "I'm yours," in ink that seemed to pulse with the spirals. The whispers returned, surging, chanting her name, Viola, ours, and then, a new voice, deeper, colder, not hers, but familiar, slithering from the wall, Lysander. Viola froze, her heart pounding, her blood turning to ice. They knew his name. She pressed her ear to the wall, the plaster cool and pulsing, the whispers silent now, save for the house, only the house's hum, a low, resonant drone that seemed to mock her fear. They saw him. They marked him. She wrote, "They know my name. They know Knox. They see me. Hope is dying." The asterisk spirals glowed asterisk, their eyes glinting, as if marking him as prey, a new entity, their hunger a void that threatened to swallow her soul whole, but now reaching beyond her, to those who doubted her, those who dared to deny the house's truth. Knox's visit left Viola with a new terror, not just for herself, but for him, for anyone who entered Wetherwood's grasp. She followed him to the foyer, her movements frantic, her voice trembling as she confronted Mrs. "You called him here. You told him I'm mad." Mrs. Gilead's humming stopped, her milky eyes glinting, her face a mask of indifference. "You're not yourself, girl. The house needed to know." Viola's hands shook, her nails digging into her palms, blood welling. "You're feeding us all to it. You're part of this." Mrs. Gilead's lips curved, a faint smile, cruel in its simplicity. "The house decides who it keeps, Miss Mirth. I just opened the door." She turned, her humming resuming, a mournful dirge that pulsed with the spirals, leaving Viola alone with the whispers chanting, "Liz, ours." Viola returned to her room, her journal heavy, her writing frantic. Knox didn't see. They know his name. They're after him too. I can't warn him. The house is winning. She tore at the wallpaper again, revealing more plaster, more fingernails, some still bleeding, as if freshly torn, the spirals pulsing, their eyes glinting, laughing. No escape, no hope. She tried to sleep, but the whispers were inside her, a chorus of voices, her mother's, Eleanor's, Thomas's, Clara's, now Knox's, blending with her thoughts, her dreams, herself, erasing her. She wrote, "They're stealing me. They're stealing him. No hope left." The spirals pulsed, the stain dripping from, forming a vortex that seemed to breathe, pulling at her soul, her reflection in the mirror a stranger, its eyes spirals, smiling cruelly, as if she was already theirs, her soul a fading echo in a void of their hunger, the house's promise of annihilation. Chapter 8, Wallbound. Viola's hope was a fragile ember, snuffed out by Dr. Knox's departure, his skepticism a chain heavier than the whispers that bound her to Wetherwood House. Her journal was a scream, its pages a battlefield where her voice, "They're taking me," was drowned by the scrawls of others, Eleanor's betrayal, Thomas's blood-soaked guilt, Clara's despair, and her mother's accusing voice blending into hers, her thoughts a fading echo. The spirals pulsed with her heartbeat, the stain from the torn wallpaper a living wound, dripping from the ceiling, walls, and floor, forming a vortex that breathed with the house's hunger. Her eyes were shadowed, her body trembling, her skin pale, almost translucent, as if the house's essence seeped into her veins, its will a weight pressing against her soul, threatening to erase her entirely. She decided to flee, her movements frantic, packing her suitcase with trembling hands, shoving her journal inside, its pages crumpling under her desperation, the spirals tightened, their eyes glinting, sensing her intent, as if the house recoiled at her defiance. She crept downstairs, avoiding the echo room's scar, the painted over's horror, and the cellar's cold malice, her candle flickering, shadows dancing across the spirals. There the foyer was silent, the front door looming, its sigils blackened, glowing faintly, pulsing with a life of their own. She yanked it open, the hinges screaming, the night air sharp and cold, the path beyond winding through oaks twisted into grotesque shapes, their branches clawing at the sky, shadows writhing like living things. She ran, her suitcase banging against her legs, her breath a frantic sob, her heart pounding, though the house's windows glowed, their eyes gleaming, watching her with a predator's patience. She reached the gates, their latch ice cold, rusted, resisting her hands, when the air shifted suddenly, the wind died, the silence pulsed, alive, a heartbeat that drowned her own, though the path blurred, the oaks twisted, the gates vanishing, replaced by a stone wall, covered in spirals, glowing sickly. Their eyes blinking, as if mourning her attempt to escape. "No," she whispered, her voice devoured, her hands clawing at the stone, fingers bleeding, blood seeping into the cracks, spirals pulsing, drinking her life. Life as if starved. She turned back, the house looming closer, impossibly vast, its door open, gaping, the foyer a cavern, its spirals glowing, laughing, no out, only in. "Stay, Viola," the whispers surged, a chorus that slithered through her mind, claiming her defiance a mockery. She ran again, the path looping, the spiral stretching across the ground, the walls, the sky, twisting into a vortex, guiding her back to the house, pulling at her soul. The door slammed shut behind her, the foyer sealing her, the spirals trapping her in their gaze, their eyes blinking in unison. She ran upstairs, the hallways twisting, doors vanishing, her room locking her in, the suitcase falling open, her journal spilling, its pages now almost entirely theirs, Eleanor's, Thomas's, Clara's, her mother's, her own handwriting erased, replaced by a scrawl that pulsed with the spirals, "We are the house." She wrote, her hands trembling, "The house won't let me leave. It's changing me. I'm not Viola anymore." Her reflection in the mirror was a stranger, its eyes spirals, its smile cruelly, its voice hers but not hers. "You're ours." The spirals pulsed, the stain bled, the house breathed, its hunger a void consuming her soul a fading echo in a labyrinth of whispers, eyes, promising a becoming, a union she couldn't fathom, a horror that terrified her more than death. Viola's days became a descent into madness, the house's gaze a weight crushing her soul. She tried to resist, to hold on to herself, but the whispers were inside her, their voices, Eleanor's, Thomas's, Clara's, her mother's, blending with her thoughts, her memories, herself, erasing her identity. She clawed at her skin, her nails drawing blood, hoping to feel something real, but the blood formed spirals, seeping into the floor, feeding the house, its pulse quickening, as if savored her pain. She wrote, "I'm not theirs. I'm still me." But, the words felt hollow, the journal a lie, the spirals laughing, their eyes glinting, as if knew she was already theirs. She confronted Mrs. Gilead again, finding her in the dining hall, her humming a dirge that pulsed with the house's heartbeat, her eyes glinting with a sorrow that chilled Viola. "You knew, I couldn't leave," Viola said, her voice raw, accusing, her hands trembling. "You trapped me here. Mrs. Gilead's humming stopped, her lips thinning, her face a mask of resignation. The house chose you, girl. I just tend to it. Viola's rage surged, her voice breaking. You're a monster. You're feeding it us. Mrs. Gilead's eyes flickered, a shadow of guilt crossing her face. The house feeds itself, Miss Mirth. I just survive it. She turned, her humming resuming, leaving Viola with the house, chanting, ours, forever. Viola returned to her room, the spirals sealed, the stain covering every surface, dripping, forming a vortex that seemed to breathe, pulling at her soul. She tried to burn the wallpaper, but it wouldn't catch, the flames flickering, dying, the house's air swallowing them, the spirals laughing. No escape, no defiance, she wrote. I tried to fight. The house won. I'm becoming it. The spirals pulsed, their eyes glowed, her reflection smiled, a stranger, its eyes burning with spirals, her own soul a fading echo, the house's hunger closing in, a promise of annihilation, or something worse, a becoming that terrified her more than death. Chapter 9, Inheritance of the Guilt. Viola's identity was dissolving, her essence a fraying thread in Wetherwood spirals, the house's whispers consuming her thoughts, her memories, her name, their voices a tide washing her away. Her journal was others, Eleanor's betrayal, Thomas's murder, Clara's despair, her mother's guilt, her entries fading, erased by the house's hunger. Am I Viola, or am I them? The spirals glowed, pulsed with her heartbeat, the stain covering every surface, dripping from the ceiling, pooling on the floor, forming a vortex that breathed with the house's will, its hunger a cosmic force, a void threatening to erase her entirely. Her skin was pale, veins pulsing faintly pulsing, as if the house's blood flowed through her, its presence a weight crushing her soul. Desperate for answers, Viola ventured into the library, its shelves sagging, books crumbling to ash, their pages blank or scrawled with spirals, as if the house erased their words. The air was thick with decay, and the metallic tang, blood seeping from the walls, a pulse she felt in her bones. A locked drawer, carved with the spirals, yielded to her knife, the blade biting her palm, blood dripping, feeding the wood, the spirals pulsing, as if alive. Inside were yellowed letters, their pages screaming with terror, the walls know my sin. I cannot leave. I see them screaming. They no want me. You become part of it. The letters crumbled to ash, staining her hands, the whispers surging, join us. Viola. The letters swirled, the house's memories seeping into her, Eleanor's lover's eyes, Thomas's regret, his hands, her Clara's despair, her mother's face blurring with Clara's, their guilt a wound bleeding into hers. The spirals pulsed, her face appearing in the plaster, her own face, half-formed, smiling cruelly, its eyes glinting with spirals, as if the house claimed her already. She fled, the corridors twisting, spirals guiding her back, her journal heavier, with others, their pain, their stories, her own fading, erased. She wrote, letters confirm it, the house takes souls. My face in the wall. I'm losing myself. The spirals bled, dripping, forming eyes, blinking, watching, her thoughts fragmenting, the whispers chanting, ours, forever. Her reflection was a stranger, its eyes spirals, eyes burning, a stranger promising her soul, the house's hunger erasing her name a fading echo. Viola's days became a descent into madness, the letters' warnings haunting her dreams, her mother's face blending with Eleanor's, Clara's, Thomas's, their eyes spirals, accusing, demanding. She tried to resist, clinging to her journal, but it was theirs, her entries erased, replaced by their confessions, their pain, her handwriting fading, her voice a whisper in their chorus. She confronted the house, her voice raw, standing in the foyer, shouting, "I'm not yours. I'm Viola." The spirals laughed, the stain pulsed, the house breathed, "You're us, you're the house." She searched for Mrs. A hidden room, driven by desperation, finding a panel behind a bookcase, carved with spirals that writhed under her touch, revealing a staircase descending into darkness, its air thick with blood's tang, a scent that pulsed with the house's malice. The chamber below was a crypt, walls pulsing with voices, Eleanor's, Thomas's, her Clara's, her mother's, blending, chanting her name, "Join us, tell us." Mrs. Gilead stood there, her eyes hollow, eyes glinting, holding a tattered book, its pages scrawled with names, hundreds, each crossed out, save for hers Viola's, glowing faintly, alive. "You're feeding it," Viola whispered, accusing, her voice raw, hands trembling. "You've trapped them all." Mrs. Gilead's lips trembled, eyes glinting with sorrow, her face a shadow. "The house feeds, girl. I tend to it, to save myself." Viola's rage surged, her voice breaking, "You're a monster." She grabbed Gilead the book, its pages burning her hands, the names screaming, their pain blending with hers. The spirals stirred, the whispers surged, "Ours, join us," Viola screamed, her voice echoing, cracking the walls, the house trembling, house, her soul trembling, a fading echo in a void of its hunger. Viola returned to her room, the spirals covering every surface, the stain bleeding, forming a vortex, eyes blinking, watching her. She wrote, "The house knows everything. It's taking me. I'm becoming it." The spirals pulsed, her reflection smiled, a stranger, its eyes burning, her soul a fading echo, the house's hunger closing in, a promise of annihilation, or something worse, a becoming that terrified her more than death. Chapter 10, Eyes in the Spiral. Viola's mind was no longer a sanctuary, but a battleground, a shattered mosaic where her thoughts bled into the whispers of others, Eleanor's betrayal, Thomas's blood-soaked regret, Clara's despair, her mother's voice accusing, unraveling her soul. Her journal had become a traitor, its pages scrawled with handwriting not her own, the phrase "I'm not crazy" repeated like a mantra scratched into stone, drowned in ink that seemed to writhe like the wallpaper's spirals. The room was a womb, its walls pulsing with the house's heartbeat, the stain from the torn wallpaper covering the ceiling, dripping like black blood, its edges forming a vortex of spirals that glowed with a sickly, otherworldly light. The air was thick with the metallic tang of blood, coating her tongue, seeping into her lungs, a constant reminder that Wetherwood House was alive, its hunger a void that pressed against her essence, seeking to erase her entirely. She stood before the mirror, her reflection a stranger, its eyes no longer hers but spirals, tiny and blinking, glinting with a cruel intelligence that mocked her fear. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, veins visible beneath, pulsing with the same rhythm as the walls, as if the house's blood flowed through her now. Her hands trembled, nails chipped and bloody from clawing at the wallpaper, at her own skin, desperate to tear away the spirals that seemed to grow beneath her flesh, their curves etching themselves into her palms, her forearms, a map of her surrender. "I'm not Viola anymore," she thought, but the thought wasn't hers alone, it echoed with the voices of the house, a chorus that slithered through her mind, claiming her as their own. "We see you, we know you, you're ours." The spirals had grown eyes, not just in her reflection, but on the walls, hundreds of them, small and glistening, blinking in unison, their gaze a weight that stripped her bare, peeling away her memories, her will, her name. They weren't human eyes, nor animal, but something older, deeper, a fragment of the house's consciousness, each pupil a vortex pulling at her soul. She tried to look away, to focus on the window, where moonlight cast jagged shadows that danced like the spirals, but the eyes followed, their gaze burning into her, whispering her secrets back to her. Her mother's death, the argument, I hate you. Each word a blade that cut deeper than the last. The room seemed to shrink, the walls leaning inward, the spirals tightening, as if the house were inhaling her, savoring her despair, its hunger a black hole that threatened to swallow her whole. She stumbled to the bed, her body heavy, as if the house's weight had rooted in her bones, her breath shallow and ragged. The journal lay open, its pages fluttering though no breeze stirred, revealing scrawls in languages she didn't know, Latin, perhaps, or something older, symbols that twisted like the spirals, their curves glinting with the same malevolent light. She grabbed her pen, its tip crusted with dried blood, and tried to write, to reclaim herself, but her hand moved against her will, tracing spirals instead of words, each curve a thread weaving her into the house's tapestry. Stop it, she whispered, her voice cracking, but the whispers answered, mocking her, right, Viola, tell us, give us more. She threw the pen across the room, its clatter swallowed by the walls, and tore at her journal, ripping pages, their edges crumbling to ash, as if the house were erasing her resistance. The spirals pulsed, the eyes blinked faster, their whispers surging, a cacophony of voices, dozens, hundreds, chanting her name, their tone possessive, gleeful, a predator's triumph. Viola, ours. Viola, but there was a new voice among them, deeper, colder, not human but something vast, ancient, a presence that seemed to speak from the house's core, its words vibrating in her chest like a second heartbeat. You cannot hide, you are the house. Her heart pounded, her vision swimming, the room spinning as the spirals closed in, their vortex pulling at her mind, her soul. She clawed at her arms, nails digging into flesh, blood welling, dripping to the floor, where it was absorbed by the wood, forming spirals that pulsed with the house's rhythm, as if drinking her life. The pain was sharp, grounding her for a moment, but the spirals reformed beneath her skin, their curves glowing faintly, a mockery of her defiance. I'm not yours, she screamed, her voice raw, echoing faintly before the walls devoured it, their hunger a weight that crushed her. The eyes in the spirals widened, their pupils dilating, as if savoring her rage, her fear, her blood. She staggered to the door, yanking it open, the hinges screaming like a wounded animal, and ran into the hallway, the corridors narrower, darker, the spirals thicker, their eyes following her, blinking in unison, their gaze a noose tightening around her soul. The house was alive, its walls breathing, its floorboards groaning, each creak a word in a language she couldn't understand but felt in her bones. She didn't know where she was running, there was no escape, she knew that now, the gates of memory twisted by the house's will, but she ran to defy the house, to prove she was still Viola, still human, still hers. The hallway stretched, doors vanishing, the spirals guiding her to a staircase she didn't remember, its steps sagging, leading upward into darkness thicker than night, a void that pulsed with the house's awareness. She climbed, her breath hitching, her body trembling, the air colder, heavier, as if the house were exhaling around her, its breath laced with blood and decay. The staircase spiraled, a grotesque mirror to the wallpaper, each turned tighter, the eyes and the walls multiplying, their whispers louder, chanting, up, up, come to us. At the top was a door, its wood blackened, carved with spirals that seemed to writhe under her touch, the knob burning her palm, not with heat but with a cold that sank into her bones. She pushed it open, the hinges silent for the first time, as if the house welcomed her here, wanted her to see. The room beyond was vast, a cathedral of shadows, its ceiling lost in darkness, its walls covered in spirals that glowed with a light that wasn't candle or moon but something older, primordial, a radiance that pulsed with the house's heartbeat. In the center stood a mirror, taller than she, its frame carved with spirals, its glass rippling like water, reflecting not the room but something else, a void where spirals twisted, eyes blinked, and faces pressed against the surface, mouths open in silent screams, their expressions shifting from agony to hunger. She approached, her reflection absent, replaced by her mother's face, then Eleanor's, Thomas's, Clara's, each morphing into the next, their eyes spirals, their mouths chanting her name. "Viola, join us." She reached out, her fingers brushing the glass, which was warm, pulsing, like flesh, and the faces surged forward, their hands clawing at the surface, nails scraping, leaving bloody streaks that dripped into the spirals below. She pulled back, her hands stained with blood that wasn't hers, the whispers laughing, a chorus that seemed to come from within her now, blending with her thoughts, her memories, herself. "You're not real," she whispered, her voice trembling, a mantra against the impossible, but the faces smiled, their teeth glinting like the chandelier's crystals, their eyes spirals that pulled at her soul. "We're more real than you, you're fading, you're ours." She backed away, tripping over something soft, yielding, a pile of wallpaper strips, peeled from the walls, each pulsing with veins, their spirals alive, writhing, eyes blinking, watching her. She screamed, scrambling to her feet, but the strips moved, slithering across the floor like serpents, wrapping around her ankles, their touch cold and possessive, pulling her toward the mirror. The whispers surged, the eyes in the walls and strips chanting, "Look, see, become." She fought, kicking, clawing, her nails tearing the strips, blood welling, feeding the spirals, their pulse quickening, as if her resistance nourished them. The mirror loomed closer, its glass rippling, the faces clearer, their hands reaching through, fingers tipped with spirals, grasping for her soul. She closed her eyes, refusing to look, but the whispers were inside her now, her mother's voice loudest, soft and accusing, "You killed me, Viola, you owe me, stay." "I'm sorry," she sobbed, tears streaming, her body trembling, the strips tightening, pulling her closer to the mirror, its heat searing her skin. "I didn't mean to. I was angry." The whispers softened, almost soothing, but their hunger was palpable, a trap closing around her heart. "Good girl, give us your guilt, give us you." The mirror's glass pulsed, a heartbeat that drowned her own, its surface softening, yielding, as if ready to swallow her whole. A sound broke the trance, Mrs. Gilead's humming, faint but piercing, a thread of reality in the house's nightmare. Viola opened her eyes, finding the old woman in the doorway, her milky eyes wide, not with fear but with sorrow, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles gleamed white. "You shouldn't be here, girl," she said, her voice low, trembling, her humming faltering, a rare crack in her stoic mask. "This is their heart, the house's core. You're feeding it your soul." Viola's voice was raw, her body shaking, the strips still clinging, their spirals pulsing. "What is this place? What are they?" Mrs. Gilead shuffled forward, her dress rustling, her eyes avoiding the mirror, as if its gaze could claim her too. "The spiral chamber. Where the house keeps its truest self, its oldest hunger. Those," she gestured to the faces, their mouths moving silently, "they gave everything. Their pain, their guilt, their names. They're the house now, its voice, its eyes, its will." Viola's stomach churned, her eyes darting to the faces, their expressions shifting, pleading, angry, smiling cruelly. "How do I stop them, she asked, tears burning, her voice barely a whisper, the strips tightening, their eyes blinking, pulling her closer to the mirror. Mrs. Gilead's lips thinned, her face a mask of resignation, her eyes glinting with a sorrow that mirrored Viola's own. "You don't. You've confessed, touched the spirals, come here. It knows you, girl, and it won't let go. Unless," she paused, her voice dropping, as if afraid the house would hear, her hands trembling. "Unless you give it something else, something stronger than you." Viola's heart pounded, hope flickering, frail but fierce. "What does that mean?" Mrs. Gilead didn't answer, her humming resuming, softer, mournful, a dirge that pulsed with the spirals, their eyes blinking in rhythm. She turned, shuffling out, her voice heavy with warning. "Don't look in the mirror, girl. Don't give it your eyes, or you'll never get him back." The door closed behind her, the hinges silent, the room sealing Viola in with the spirals, the faces, the whispers that were now her own. She tore at the strips, blood dripping, feeding the spirals, their pulse quickening, but they fell away, slithering back to the pile, their eyes watching, waiting. The mirror pulsed, its faces chanting, "Look, see, become." She covered her eyes, stumbling toward the door, but the floor tilted, the spirals twisting, guiding her back, their vortex pulling at her soul. Her reflection appeared in her mind's eye, smiling, its eyes spirals, its voice hers but not, "You're already ours, why fight?" She screamed, her voice raw, echoing in the chamber, the spirals laughing, their eyes blinking, their hunger a void that threatened to erase her. She fell to her knees, hands clutching her head, her thoughts fragmenting, the whispers weaving into her memories, her mother's face blending with Clara's, Eleanor's, Thomas's, her guilt theirs, her name fading, her soul a fading echo in a labyrinth of spirals, the house's hunger closing in, promising her annihilation, or something worse, a union she couldn't fathom, a becoming that terrified her more than death. Viola's scream lingered, a raw wound in the spiral chamber, its echo absorbed by the walls, feeding the spirals, their eyes blinking faster, their hunger a palpable force that seemed to breathe with her. She crawled toward the door, her nails scraping the floorboards, leaving bloody streaks that formed spirals, pulsing with the house's rhythm, as if her defiance only nourished its will. The mirror loomed behind her, its glass rippling, the faces pressing closer, their hands clawing, nails scraping, their voices chanting, "Stay, stay, you're ours." Her mother's face was clearest, her eyes spirals, her smile cruel, accusing, "You owe me, Viola, you killed me." She reached the door, her hands trembling, the knob burning her palm, but it wouldn't turn, the hinges silent, as if the house had sealed her in, claiming her as its own. The spirals pulsed, the room shrinking, the walls leaning inward, their eyes multiplying, their gaze a noose tightening around her soul. She pounded on the door, her fists bloody, her screams raw, but the house swallowed her voice, the spirals laughing, no out, only in, her vision blurred, tears mixing with blood, her thoughts fragmenting, the whispers weaving into her memories, her mother's voice blending with Eleanor's, Thomas's, Clara's, their pain hers, their guilt a chain binding her to the house. She collapsed, her body trembling, her breath ragged, the spirals closing in, their eyes blinking in unison, their hunger a void that threatened to swallow her whole. Her journal lay beside her, its pages open, scrawled with spirals, the ink pulsing, as if alive, the words "I'm not Viola" repeated, not in her hand but theirs, a chorus of voices claiming her soul. She grabbed it, her fingers bloody, and tried to write, to reclaim herself, but her hand moved against her will, tracing spirals, each curve a thread weaving her into the house's tapestry. "I'm still me," she whispered, her voice breaking, but the whispers answered, mocking her, "You're us, you're the house." The mirror pulsed, its glass softening, yielding, as if ready to swallow her, the faces reaching through, their hands tipped with spirals, grasping for her soul. She closed her eyes, refusing to look, but their gaze burned through her lids, their voices inside her, chanting, "Look, see, become." Her mother's voice was loudest, soft and accusing. "You can't run, Viola, you owe me," she sobbed, her body trembling, the spirals tightening, their eyes blinking, their hunger a weight crushing her soul. Then, a flicker of defiance, a spark born in her refusal to look, to give them her eyes. She crawled away from the mirror, her hands bloody, her nails scraping the floor, the spirals pulsing, their eyes blinking, watching, waiting. She reached the wall, her fingers brushing the plaster, warm and pulsing, embedded with fingernails, some still bleeding, as if freshly torn. She tore at it, her nails digging, blood welling, feeding the spirals, their pulse quickening, but the plaster crumbled, revealing a void beyond, a darkness alive with spirals, eyes blinking, voices chanting, "Come, come, you're ours." She screamed, her voice raw, echoing in the void, the spirals laughing, their eyes blinking, their hunger a void that threatened to erase her. She fell back, her body trembling, the mirror behind her pulsing, the faces reaching, their hands grasping, their voices chanting, "Stay, stay, you're ours." But the spark of defiance burned brighter, a refusal to be consumed, a will to fight, even if it meant her annihilation. She stood, her body trembling, her eyes fixed on the door, the spirals pulsing, their eyes blinking, watching, waiting. "I'm not yours," she whispered, her voice steady, a defiance born of despair. She grabbed the journal, its pages pulsing, and tore them out, scattering them across the floor, their ink forming spirals, pulsing with the house's rhythm, as if her resistance nourished its hunger. The spirals surged, the eyes widened, their voices chanting, "More, give us more," but she refused, her eyes fixed on the door, her hands bloody, her soul a fading echo, but still hers, still Viola, still fighting. She lunged for the door, her hands trembling, the knob turning this time, the hinges screaming, as if the house recoiled at her defiance. She stumbled into the hallway, the spirals pulsing, their eyes blinking, watching, following, their hunger a weight that threatened to crush her. The house was alive, its walls breathing, its floorboards groaning, each creak a word in a language she couldn't understand but felt in her bones. She ran, the corridors twisting, the spirals guiding her deeper, their eyes multiplying, their voices chanting, "No out, only in." But the spark of defiance burned, a flame that refused to be extinguished, a will to fight, to survive, to be Viola, even if it meant her annihilation. She ran, her body trembling, her soul a fading echo, but still hers, still fighting, the house's hunger closing in, promising a becoming she couldn't fathom, a horror that terrified her more than death, but a spark that promised something else, something she couldn't name, but felt in her bones, a defiance that might wound the house, or become it, or something else entirely, a mystery she carried into the darkness, her soul aflame in a void of spirals, eyes, and hunger. Chapter 11, Mrs. Gilead's Secret. Viola's essence was a fraying thread, her body a vessel for Wetherwood's whispers, their voices, Eleanor's, Thomas's, Clara's, her mother's, blending with her own, each a shard of pain carving away her identity. The spiral chamber had scarred her, its eyes burned into her vision, their gaze a weight that followed her to her room, where the stains smothered every surface, dripping from the ceiling, pooling on the floor, forming spirals pulsing with the house's heartbeat. Her skin bore faint spirals, glowing in the dark, their curves tightening with each breath, as if the house stitched itself into her flesh, claiming her. I'm not Viola, she thought, but the thought was theirs, the whispers chanting, you're us, you're the house. Mrs. Gilead's words, give it something stronger than you, haunted her, a riddle promising salvation or doom. Driven to unravel the caretaker's role, Viola searched the house, her movements frantic, body trembling, spirals watching, their eyes blinking, guiding her deeper into Wetherwood's labyrinth. Corridors twisted, doors materialized, the air thick with blood's tang, pulsing with her fear. In the library, a panel behind a bookcase, carved with writhing spirals, yielded to her touch, revealing a staircase descending into darkness, its steps slick with a warm, viscous fluid like blood, its scent choking her lungs. The staircase spiraled downward, a grotesque echo of the wallpaper, each step groaning, the air colder, heavier, as if the house exhaled its malice. At its base was a chamber, vast and shadowed, its ceiling draped with wallpaper strips, each pulsing with veins, their spirals alive, eyes blinking, voices whispering, Eleanor's lover's betrayal, Thomas's crime, Clara's drowned child, her mother's accident, each a thread in the house's tapestry. In the center stood Mrs. Gilead, her milky eyes wide, humming absent, hands clutching a tattered book, its pages yellowed, scrawled with names, hundreds crossed out, save for Viola's, glowing faintly, as if alive. You found it, girl, Mrs. Gilead said, her voice trembling, face ashen, a mask cracked by fear or guilt. The feeding room. Where the house keeps its ledger, its meals. Viola's heart pounded, hands shaking, spirals on her skin glowing brighter. What are you? She demanded, voice raw, stepping closer, the strips above writhing, chanting her name. What have you done? Mrs. Gilead's lips quivered, eyes glinting with tears, a vulnerability chilling Viola. I fed the house, girl. For centuries. I brought M here, Eleanor, Thomas, Clara, others before, others after. Their pain, their guilt, their souls. I gave M to the house to spare myself, to keep it sated, to keep it from taking me. Viola. Chapter 12, The Heart's Defiance. Viola stood in the feeding room, her breath a ragged sob, the air thick with the metallic tang of blood, the walls pulsing with Wetherwood's hunger, their spirals writhing, eyes blinking, voices chanting, Eleanor's betrayal, Thomas's murder, Clara's despair, her mother's accusing voice, each a thread weaving her into the house's tapestry. Mrs. Gilead's confession, centuries of feeding souls to the house to spare herself, burned in Viola's mind, a betrayal that fueled a spark of defiance, a flame refusing to be extinguished, even as her own identity frayed, her skin etched with glowing spirals, her thoughts invaded by the house's chorus. You're us, you're the house, the tattered book in Mrs. Gilead's hands, its pages scrawled with names. Viola's glowing among the crossed-out dead, was a ledger of Wetherwood's meals, a record of its insatiable will. Why me? Viola demanded, her voice raw, hands trembling, blood dripping from her nails, feeding the strips above, their spirals tightening, eyes glinting. Why did you choose me? Mrs. Gilead's milky eyes flickered, her face a mask of sorrow cracked by guilt, her hands clutching the book tighter, its pages pulsing faintly, as if alive. I didn't choose, girl. The house did. It smells pain, guilt, secrets. Yours were, right, Miss Mirth. Stronger than most. It wanted you from the moment you crossed the threshold, your grief a beacon, your mother's death a wound it could drink. Viola's stomach churned, her mother's voice echoing in her head, you killed me, Viola, blending with the whispers, their hunger a weight crushing her soul. And you just gave me to it, she whispered, her voice breaking, spirals on her skin glowing brighter, pulsing with the house's heartbeat, as if claiming her flesh. Mrs. Gilead's lips quivered, a tear tracing her wrinkled cheek, glinting in the sickly light of the spirals. I've fed it for centuries, girl. Each soul bought me time, kept me from its jaws. I'm no monster, just a survivor, bound to Wetherwood like you, like them. She gestured to the strips, their voices surging, chanting Viola's name, their eyes blinking in unison, a chorus of the damned. Viola's rage surged, her hands clenching, blood welling, dripping to the floor, forming spirals that pulsed, feeding the house's hunger. You're worse than a monster, she spat, stepping closer, the strips writhing, their whispers laughing, ours, you're a coward, selling souls to save your own. Mrs. Gilead flinched, her humming faltering, her eyes wide with a fear Viola hadn't seen before, as if her words struck deeper than the house's hunger. You don't understand, she whispered, voice trembling, the book slipping from her grasp, pages fluttering, names glowing faintly, screaming silently. The house is eternal, girl. It's older than time, born from a sacrifice no human mind can fathom. You can't fight it, only feed it, or be fed. Viola lunged, snatching the book, its leather burning her hands, the names searing her mind, Eleanor, Thomas, Clara, hundreds more, their pain flooding her, blending with her mother's guilt, her own despair, a tide threatening to drown her. The spirals pulsed, the strips surged, slithering toward her, their eyes blinking, voices chanting, give it back, join us. She tore a page, the paper screaming, blood welling from its edges, staining her hands, the spirals on her skin glowing brighter, as if the house drank her defiance. Stop! Mrs. Gilead cried, her voice raw, hands reaching, but the strips wrapped around her wrists, their spirals tightening, eyes glinting, pulling her back, as if the house punished her for her lapse. You'll anger it, girl. You'll make it hungrier. Viola's heart pounded, her vision swimming, the book pulsing in her hands, its pages alive, writhing, the names chanting her own, their pain a mirror to hers. I'm done feeding it, she said, her voice steady, a defiance born of despair, her eyes fixed on Mrs. Gilead, the strips, the spirals, their eyes blinking, watching, waiting. I'll burn it down, tear it apart, expose it. If I'm going, I'm taking it with me. Mrs. Gilead's face paled, her eyes wide, not with fear but with awe, or dread, or something Viola couldn't name, as if her words woke something ancient, something the house hadn't felt in centuries. The strips paused, their eyes blinking slower, the whispers faltering, a silence pulsing with the house's awareness, its hunger sharpening, a predator sensing a wound. The book burned hotter, its pages curling, the names screaming, their pain surging through Viola, her mother's voice loudest. You can't destroy it, you'll become it. Viola tore another page, blood dripping, feeding the floor, the spirals pulsing, the strips surging again, wrapping around her ankles, their touch cold, possessive, pulling her toward the center, where a vortex of spirals glowed, its eyes multiplying, blinking, a void threatening to swallow her whole. She fought, kicking, clawing, her nails tearing the strips, blood welling, feeding the house, its pulse quickening, as if her defiance nourished it, amplified its hunger, reshaped its will. The walls trembled, the ceiling groaned, wallpaper strips raining down, their eyes blinking, voices chanting, more, give us more. She stumbled to the wall, her hands bloody, nails digging into the plaster, warm and pulsing, embedded with fingernails, some still bleeding, as if freshly torn. She tore at it, the plaster crumbling, revealing a void beyond, a darkness alive with spirals, eyes blinking, voices chanting, but deeper, older, a presence that wasn't human, wasn't the house's victims, but its core, its heart, a consciousness born from a sacrifice older than stone, older than blood. The void pulsed, a heartbeat drowning her own, its gaze burning into her, peeling away her memories, her guilt, her name, promising annihilation, or something worse, a becoming she couldn't fathom. "What are you?" she whispered, her voice raw, trembling, the book slipping from her hands, its pages scattering, the names screaming, their pain blending with hers, her mother's face appearing in the void, her eyes spirals, smiling cruelly, accusing. "You woke it, Viola, you fed it." The void answered, not with words but with a vision, a flood of images searing her mind, a circle of robed figures, their faces shadowed, chanting in a tongue that twisted her soul, their hands dripping blood, a sacrifice, a child, screaming, its eyes spirals, sinking into the earth, the ground pulsing, stone rising, Wetherwood born from pain, from betrayal, from a hunger that could never be sated. The house was alive, eternal, a fragment of something older, vaster, its spirals a map of its will, its eyes a window to its soul, its hunger a cosmic force that fed on pain, guilt, despair, weaving them into its essence, claiming them as its own. Viola screamed, her voice raw, echoing in the void, the spirals laughing, their eyes blinking, their hunger a weight crushing her soul. She fell to her knees, her hands bloody, the strips tightening, pulling her closer to the void, its pulse quickening, as if savoring her defiance, her pain, her soul. The book lay open, its pages pulsing, the names chanting, "Join us, become us." Mrs. Gilead stood frozen, her eyes wide, her humming gone, her face a mask of horror, as if she saw the house's heart for the first time, its hunger not just for Viola, but for her, for all, a void that would never be filled. "I won't let you take me," Viola whispered, her voice steady, a spark of defiance burning brighter, a flame refusing to be extinguished. She grabbed the book, tearing its pages, blood welling, feeding the spirals, their eyes blinking faster, the void pulsing, the house trembling, its walls cracking, plaster falling, revealing more voids, more spirals, more eyes, their hunger a tide threatening to drown her. The strips surged, wrapping around her arms, her throat, their spirals tightening, eyes glinting, pulling her closer to the void, its gaze burning, promising a becoming she couldn't escape. But her defiance burned, a flame wounding the house, reshaping its hunger, its will, a spark that might destroy it, or become it, or something else, a mystery she carried into the void, her soul aflame in a labyrinth of spirals, eyes, and hunger. The feeding room shook, the spirals pulsed, the eyes blinked, the whispers chanted, "Viola, ours." But her voice echoed, raw and defiant, "I'm not yours." The void surged, the house screamed, a sound not of stone or wood but of something alive, eternal, wounded, its hunger amplified, its will reshaped, a mystery unfolding, a horror she couldn't fathom, but fought, her soul a spark in a void of spirals, eyes, and endless hunger. Chapter 13, The House Reborn. Viola's defiance was a wound in Wetherwood's heart, a spark that burned in the feeding room's void, its spirals pulsing, eyes blinking, voices chanting, Eleanor's, Thomas's, Clara's, her mother's, her own, blending, claiming her soul, but failing to erase her will. The house trembled, its walls cracking, plaster crumbling, revealing voids alive with spirals, their hunger a cosmic force, amplified by her resistance, reshaped by her pain, her guilt, her refusal to be consumed. The strips clung to her, their spirals etched into her skin, glowing brighter, pulsing with the house's heartbeat, as if she were becoming its vessel, its voice, its will. But her spark burned, a flame that wounded the house, promising annihilation, or something worse, a becoming she couldn't fathom, a mystery that terrified her more than death. The void in the feeding room pulsed, a heartbeat drowning her own, its gaze burning, peeling away her memories, her name, her soul, but her defiance held, a spark that refused to fade, even as the spirals tightened, their eyes blinking faster, their hunger a tide threatening to drown her. Mrs. Gilead stood frozen, her milky eyes wide, her face a mask of horror, as if she saw the house's true nature for the first time, its hunger not just for Viola, but for all, a void that would never be sated. The book's pages lay scattered, their names screaming, blood welling, feeding the spirals, the house's pulse quickening, as if Viola's defiance nourished it, reshaped it, woke something ancient, eternal, a consciousness born from a sacrifice older than time. Viola crawled toward the staircase, her hands bloody, nails scraping the floor, leaving streaks that formed spirals, pulsing with the house's rhythm, as if her resistance fed its hunger, its will. The strips surged, wrapping around her legs, her arms, her throat, their spirals tightening, eyes glinting, pulling her back to the void, its gaze burning, promising a becoming she couldn't escape. She screamed, her voice raw, echoing in the void, the spirals laughing, their eyes blinking, their hunger a weight crushing her soul. But her spark burned brighter, a flame that wounded the house, a defiance that reshaped its hunger, its will, a mystery unfolding, a horror she couldn't fathom, but fought, her soul aflame in a labyrinth of spirals, eyes, and endless hunger. The staircase groaned, its steps sagging, the air colder, heavier, as if the house exhaled its malice, its spirals guiding her upward, their eyes blinking, watching, waiting. She climbed, her body trembling, her breath ragged, the strips clinging, their spirals glowing, pulsing with her heartbeat, as if she were already theirs, already the house. The corridors twisted, doors vanishing, the spirals stretching across the walls, the floor, the ceiling, forming a vortex that pulsed with the house's awareness, its hunger a void threatening to swallow her whole. She stumbled into the foyer, the front door looming, its sigils blackened, glowing faintly, pulsing with a life of their own, a barrier she knew she couldn't cross, but fought for, her defiance a spark that burned brighter, a flame that refused to be extinguished. The house screamed, a sound not of stone or wood but of something alive, eternal, wounded, its walls cracking, plaster falling, revealing voids alive with spirals, eyes blinking, voices chanting, Viola, ours. The chandelier swayed, its crystals glinting like teeth, their clinking a faint, mocking laughter, the shadows dancing across the spirals, writhing like serpents, their curves tightening, as if the house recoiled at her defiance, its hunger amplified, its will reshaped. She reached the door, her hands bloody, the knob burning her palm, not with heat but with a cold that sank into her bones, the hinges screaming as she yanked it open, the night air sharp and cold, the path beyond winding through oaks twisted into grotesque shapes, their branches clawing at the sky, shadows writhing like living things. She ran, her body trembling, the strips clinging, their spirals glowing, pulsing with the house's heartbeat, as if she carried its will, its hunger, its essence. The path blurred, the oaks twisted, the gates vanishing, replaced by a stone wall, covered in spirals, glowing sickly, their eyes blinking, watching, pulling her back. She clawed at the stone, her fingers bleeding, blood seeping into the cracks, spirals pulsing, drinking her life, the house's pulse quickening, as if her defiance nourished it, reshaped it, woke something new, something worse, a consciousness that wasn't just Wetherwood, but Viola, her spark of flame that burned within its heart, wounding it, becoming it, or something else, a mystery she couldn't fathom. The spirals pulsed, the eyes blinked, the whispers surged, chanting her name, their tone not just possessive, but reverent, as if her defiance had changed them, reshaped their hunger, their will, a spark that burned brighter, a flame that promised something new, something terrifying, something eternal. She fell to her knees, her hands bloody, her body trembling, the spirals on her skin glowing brighter, pulsing with the house's heartbeat, as if she were its vessel, its voice, its will. But her spark burned, a defiance that refused to fade, a flame that wounded the house, promising annihilation, or a becoming, a mystery that terrified her more than death. The house trembled, its walls cracking, plaster crumbling, the voids alive with spirals, eyes blinking, voices chanting, but softer, mournful, as if her defiance had wounded them, reshaped them, made them something new, something worse, a consciousness that wasn't just the house's, but hers, her spark of flame that burned within its heart, radiating outward, a threat not just to Wetherwood, but to the world beyond, a mystery unfolding, a horror she couldn't fathom, but fought, her soul aflame. In a void of spirals, eyes, and endless hunger, Viola stood, her body trembling, her eyes fixed on the horizon, where the oaks twisted, their shadows writhing, the spirals pulsing, their eyes blinking, watching, waiting. She wasn't free, her essence entwined with the house's, her spark of flame that burned within its heart, wounding it, reshaping it, radiating an ambiguous threat, a mystery that terrified her, but drove her forward, her soul a spark in a void of spirals, eyes, and hunger. The house's pulse quickened, its spirals glowed, its eyes blinked, its whispers chanted, not just her name, but something new, something worse, a name she couldn't hear, but felt in her bones, a becoming she couldn't fathom, a horror that promised something eternal, something terrifying, something hers. Mrs. Gilead appeared, her milky eyes wide, her face a mask of awe, or dread, or something Viola couldn't name, her humming absent, her hands trembling, as if she saw Viola for the first time, not as prey, but as something else, something worse, a spark that wounded the house, reshaped it, radiated a threat to the world beyond. "What have you done, girl?" she whispered, her voice trembling, her eyes glinting with tears, as if she saw the house's heart, its hunger, its will, reshaped by Viola's defiance, a mystery unfolding, a horror she couldn't fathom. Viola didn't answer, her eyes fixed on the horizon, the spirals pulsing, their eyes blinking, watching, waiting, her spark burning brighter, a flame that refused to be extinguished, a defiance that wounded the house, reshaped it, promised something new, something terrifying, something eternal. She stepped forward, her body trembling, the strips falling away, their spirals fading, as if her defiance had freed her, or claimed her, or something else, a mystery she carried into the darkness, her soul aflame in a void of spirals, eyes, and endless hunger. The house stood silent, its walls cracked, its spirals pulsing, its eyes blinking, watching, waiting, its hunger reshaped, its will wounded, a consciousness born anew, not just Wetherwood's, but Viola's, her spark of flame that burned within its heart, radiating outward, a threat to the world beyond, a mystery unfolding, a horror that promised something eternal, something terrifying, something hers. The oaks twisted, their shadows writhing, the horizon blurring, the spirals pulsing, their eyes blinking, watching, waiting, as Viola vanished into the darkness, her soul a spark, a flame, a mystery, a horror, a becoming, an ending that wasn't an ending, a promise of something worse, something eternal, something hers.